We live surrounded by thoughts but starving for awareness. Modern man has learned to think too much and understand too little. His mind has become a storm of voices, and silence, the same silence where God still speaks, has become forgotten ground. We chase answers, but we've stopped asking the right questions. We gather information, but lose wisdom along the way. We call it progress. But most of it is just inner noise that keeps us from hearing the Spirit. As we multiply ideas, we shrink our presence. We live in an age where the mind is overloaded and the heart is underfed. We turn thought into a prison when it was meant to be a bridge between the human and the divine. Jesus knew this. That's why before he healed bodies, he healed minds. Before he calmed the sea, he calmed the thought. He knew that every miracle is born first in consciousness, but the world forgot. People think constantly but rarely think like Christ, and that's why there's so much noise and so little peace. The mind was meant to be a temple, but we turned it into a marketplace, and when the mind becomes a market, the soul goes silent. But Jesus came to remind us, the kingdom is not out there, it's within, and whoever governs the mind governs reality. Before we continue, tell me in the comments, where are you watching from? We want to know how far this message of peace and awakening is reaching. If there's one truth the modern world has forgotten, it's that your greatest battles are not fought in the world. They are fought in your mind. That's why Jesus spoke more about thinking than about doing. He didn't come to give us formulas for success. He came to give us a new way of seeing. He knew that every thought is a seed, and every belief, a doorway. If you plant fear, you grow confusion. If you plant faith, you grow peace. If you plant gratitude, you grow miracles. The problem is that most people live as prisoners of their own mind. They wake up already fighting invisible wars, wars between faith and fear, between trust and anxiety, between what they believe and what they feel. But Jesus came to show another way. He taught that the true power of life is not outside of you, it's in the way you think. When he said, "Be transformed by the renewal of your mind," he was revealing the map to heaven on earth. Because nothing changes on the outside until something changes on the inside. Your thoughts are not random, they are creative. They shape your emotions, your habits, your destiny, and the one who learns to govern the mind learns to govern reality. So today we'll go deeper into what Jesus said about the mind, why every miracle begins in consciousness, and how thinking like Christ is the secret to living in peace. The mind is a universe, a quiet infinity behind your eyes, a sacred field where every thought becomes a seed and every belief grows into a world. Jesus understood this more deeply than anyone. While others searched for God in temples and rituals, he found him in consciousness. He found him in silence. He found him in the hidden space where thought becomes prayer. He never said, "The kingdom of God will arrive." He said, "The kingdom of God is within you." That single sentence carries the map to heaven. It means that peace, freedom, and divine connection are not things to achieve. They are states to remember. Before he calmed storms on the sea, he calmed storms in his mind. Before he healed bodies, he healed perception. Because every miracle is first a shift in consciousness. When Jesus looked at a man the world called broken, he didn't see sickness. He saw light trying to remember itself. He didn't see limitation. He saw potential. He didn't see sin. He saw confusion waiting to awaken. He wasn't reacting to the world. He was revealing it as God sees it. A miracle is not something unnatural. It is what happens when your mind returns to truth. When thought and faith align, matter has no choice but to follow. That is why he could multiply bread, walk on water, and speak to the storm as if it were alive. Because in truth, it was. Everything responds to awareness. If you have faith as small as a mustard seed, he said, you can tell this mountain to move and it will move. He wasn't speaking of stone and dirt. He was speaking of belief, of mental mountains built from fear, doubt, and memory. The mustard seed was never about size. It was about purity. A single thought free from fear can move the heaviest walls of the soul. But the tragedy of humanity is forgetfulness. We have built cities and conquered oceans. Yet we have forgotten how to be still. We have explored planets but not our own consciousness. We pray for miracles while thinking like victims. We search for God in the sky while ignoring his voice inside our minds. Jesus came to remind us of the forgotten kingdom. He came to show that the battle is not fought in the world, it is fought in thought. Every worry begins with imagination. Every fear begins with a picture you believe. Every storm begins with a whisper you choose to trust. That's why he said, "Who of you by worrying can add a single hour to your life?" He was exposing the illusion of mental control. The mind that worries is the mind that believes it must survive alone. But the one who knows it walks with God rests even in uncertainty. A thought is not harmless. It is a command to creation. You become what you repeatedly think. You shape your world by the language you use in silence. That's why he said, "Out of the abundance of the heart the mouth speaks." The words you speak are echoes of your inner conversation, and that inner conversation writes the script of your reality. When Jesus taught about renewing the mind, he was not preaching morality. He was teaching mastery. The mind is a garden. Thoughts are seeds. You cannot harvest peace from soil filled with fear. You cannot grow joy if you keep planting comparison and doubt. But the good news is that the garden obeys. It always responds to the hand that tends it. If you begin to water gratitude, to nurture silence, to let faith take root, your reality begins to shift. Not because the world changes, but because your eyes finally see what was always there. Jesus lived as the example of that renewal. He trained his mind to remain in harmony even when everything around him screamed chaos. He didn't escape the world, he transcended it. When crowds mocked, he stayed silent. When hate surrounded him, he loved anyway. When pain came, he forgave. He never let his mind be ruled by reaction. He ruled it with presence. That is what it means to think like Christ. It is not about never feeling anger or sadness. It is about never letting those feelings dictate who you are. He said, "Let this mind be in you, which was also in Christ Jesus." He was saying, the same consciousness that guided me can guide you. The same peace that lived in me already lives in you. Peace is not something to earn. It is something to remember. The storm inside you doesn't need to be destroyed. It only needs to be seen through. Remember the night on the sea. The wind howled, the water rose, and his disciples panicked. "Teacher, don't you care that we're dying?" they cried. And Jesus, calm as dawn, stood and said, "Peace, be still." And it was. The miracle was not that the sea obeyed him. It was that his mind never stopped believing in peace. The sea outside listened to the silence inside. He was showing us something sacred. The outer storm ends when the inner storm is mastered. That's the hidden law of the Spirit. Peace commands chaos, stillness governs motion, awareness rules illusion. But today, humanity lives surrounded by storms of its own making. Screens flicker, minds race, hearts ache. The body may rest, but the mind never does. We mistake motion for meaning and exhaustion for purpose. We call distraction productivity and emptiness progress. But no amount of running will ever lead to peace, because peace does not live in speed, it lives in stillness. Jesus knew this. That's why he often withdrew to lonely places to pray. He wasn't escaping, he was aligning. He understood that clarity comes not from more noise, but from silence. "When you pray," he said, "go into your room and close the door." He was not speaking of wood and walls. He was speaking of consciousness. Close the door of distraction. Enter the room of awareness. There in the quiet, heaven speaks. That silence is not empty. It is filled with presence. It is the awareness that God is closer than thought, closer than breath. In that awareness, fear loses its language. Doubt dissolves. Time slows. You begin to feel what Jesus felt, oneness. He faced betrayal, yet he loved. He faced death, yet he forgave. He faced the end, yet he called it the beginning. He lived from a consciousness where nothing was missing. That's why he said, "I and the Father are one." Because when the mind unites with the divine, the soul becomes untouchable. You are invited into that same state. It is not reserved for saints. It is available to every human who chooses awareness over fear. Every time you forgive when you could hate, you think like Christ. Every time you pause before reacting, you think like Christ. Every time you choose gratitude in uncertainty, you think like Christ. And when you think like Christ, You stop trying to fix the world and start transforming it from within. This is where miracles begin, not when circumstances shift, but when perception does. The sick man sees himself whole. The fearful soul remembers love. The storm becomes calm. This is what Jesus came to teach. You are not a victim of your mind. You are its creator, its witness, its ruler. And when you govern it with love, you govern your reality. The kingdom of heaven is not far away. It is one thought away. And that thought is peace. The mind is not healed in a single moment of revelation. It is healed through practice, through the daily decision to return to truth when illusion calls louder. Every day, the world offers you new reasons to forget who you are. Deadlines, judgments, memories, regrets. But every one of those moments is also an invitation, a doorway back into awareness. Jesus walked through those doorways again and again. He faced rejection, misunderstanding, and pain, but never allowed them to define him. He remembered always that peace was not something to be found, it was what he already was. When he said, "Be transformed by the renewal of your mind," he was not speaking about one grand awakening that lasts forever. He was describing a rhythm. Fall asleep, awaken, forget, remember. The spiritual life is not perfection, it is repetition of remembrance. Every breath is another chance to return, every pause another invitation to realign thought with spirit. The world will tell you that strength means constant motion, but Christ showed that strength is stillness. The world will say that victory is domination, but Christ proved that victory is surrender. And the surrender he spoke of was not defeat, it was release. To surrender the need to control is to allow the divine mind to think through you. It is to exchange the endless noise of fear for the quiet certainty of love. You have felt that quiet before. Maybe in a moment when time seemed to stop, when all thoughts vanished and you were simply present. That was not emptiness, it was remembrance. That is the natural state of a mind aligned with God. You do not have to manufacture peace, you only need to stop covering it. The more you return to that state, the more your thoughts change shape. They become lighter, slower, kinder. You stop rehearsing pain and begin rehearsing gratitude. You stop building walls of argument and begin planting gardens of silence. You begin to notice small things, the sound of the wind, the rhythm of your breath, the way light bends through the air. These are not distractions, they are the language of the present moment. They are the echoes of God reminding you that reality has always been sacred. When Jesus said, "Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God," he was speaking of perception, not perfection. To be pure in heart means to look without distortion, to see without the fog of fear or the lens of guilt. God has never been hiding. It is our perception that turned away. When the mind becomes quiet, even for a second, you see that everything glows from the inside. The trees, the sky, the people you thought were strangers, they are all fragments of the same light. And in that recognition, peace arises naturally. That peace is not fragile. It does not depend on circumstance. You can lose everything and not lose it. You can sit in darkness and still know the sun exists. Jesus showed this when he faced the cross. The body trembled, the pain was real, yet his consciousness remained clear. He said, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." Even then, the mind of Christ did not descend into hatred. It remained where it always was, inside the truth. That is the highest mastery of the mind, to see beyond appearances into purpose. The human mind, left untrained, clings to control. It fears the unknown and fights what it cannot predict. But the divine mind flows. It trusts that everything unfolds in right timing. When you begin to think like Christ, you learn the difference between planning and surrender. Planning tries to secure tomorrow. Surrender allows tomorrow to reveal itself. Both use thought, but one is heavy and the other is light. In the stillness that Christ embodied, there was no resistance. Even the moments of grief and anger became teachers. He cried for Lazarus, he sweat blood in Gethsemane, but he never lost connection to love. His mind could contain sorrow and peace at once because he understood that emotions are waves, not definitions. They rise, they break, they pass. What you truly are, the consciousness behind them, remains untouched. When you begin to live from that understanding, you stop fearing emotion. You can feel fully without being lost. You can allow sadness, anger, or uncertainty to pass through without naming yourself after them. This is the freedom Jesus called truth. It is not the absence of feeling, but the awareness that feeling is not who you are. Look at your own thoughts today. Notice how quickly they try to pull you into stories. What might happen, what went wrong, what others think. Each story is a small storm, and every storm demands your attention. But you can choose not to enter. You can observe the storm instead of fighting it. That simple shift, from reaction to observation, is what turns fear into clarity. That is what watch and pray truly means. Watch the mind, and in watching, pray, not with words, but with awareness. Every time you notice your thoughts, you stand apart from them. You stop being their prisoner and become their guide. And as you guide them toward gratitude, kindness, and faith, you discover that your external world begins to follow. Circumstances soften, opportunities open. People respond differently, because creation always mirrors consciousness. The mind is not an obstacle to spirit, it is its instrument, but it must be tuned. A guitar left untouched will go out of tune with time, but a single gentle adjustment can bring music back. In the same way, each moment of awareness tunes the mind back to harmony. You can do this now. Pause, breathe. Notice the silence between thoughts. That silence is the sound of alignment. That is the same silence where Christ prayed, where he listened instead of asking. Prayer in its highest form is not petition, but participation. It is letting divine intelligence think through you. It is sitting in stillness until your thoughts slow enough for love to speak. And when love speaks, it does not use words. It uses knowing. You simply understand what you must do, where you must go, who you must forgive. Guidance rises naturally from peace, never from panic. When you make peace your priority, miracles become ordinary. They stop being exceptions and start being expressions of alignment. A quiet mind does not need to force, it allows. It trusts the unseen order. Jesus trusted so deeply that even when all evidence said it's over, he knew it was beginning. That is the mind of Christ, the unshakable certainty that God never stops creating good. You can train your mind to hold that same certainty. Begin each day with remembrance. I am not this fear. I am not this doubt. Say it gently but firmly. When anxiety whispers, answer it with stillness. When comparison appears, respond with gratitude. When anger rises, breathe and remember. Peace is power. At first it may feel like nothing changes, but every repetition is a seed. The mind learns by rhythm, and soon that rhythm becomes natural. Peace stops being a practice and becomes your baseline. Even when life tests you, and it will, you no longer collapse into despair. You pause, you breathe, you listen. And in that moment, you feel the quiet presence that never leaves. That presence is Christ in you, the divine mind alive in human form. It is not distant, it does not judge, it simply waits for your attention. And when you give it that attention, you feel what he felt, peace beyond understanding. This is what Jesus meant when he said, "My peace I give to you." He was not offering comfort, he was revealing identity. Peace is not something you receive from the world, it is what you are beneath the noise. When you realize that, you stop chasing calm and begin embodying it. The same power that walked through storms now walks through you. The same stillness that silenced oceans now breathes in your chest. And the same love that forgave the world now looks through your eyes. The more you live from that awareness, the more you see how sacred everything becomes. The ordinary turns divine. Even pain becomes a teacher. Even loss becomes an opening. You begin to understand that the purpose of life is not to escape the world, but to awaken within it. The divine mind does not seek escape, it seeks expression. It wants to think through you, love through you, create through you. That is why Jesus said, "You will do even greater works." He was not flattering, he was describing expansion. The mind that aligns with the Creator becomes a creator. You are that extension of divine thought, The moment you accept this, fear begins to fade. Fear cannot live where awareness shines. It feeds on ignorance, on the belief that you are separate, small, powerless. But Jesus shattered that illusion. He reminded us, "You are the light of the world." And light does not ask darkness for permission to shine. From this understanding flows the simple practice of daily renewal. Every morning before the noise begins, take 1 minute to remember the truth. The kingdom is within. Think this quietly. Feel it. Let it sink into your bones. You will notice how quickly peace answers, not because you begged for it, but because you stopped resisting it. In that stillness, your perception begins to shift again. Problems look smaller, people kinder, the future less threatening. It is not that the world changed, it is that you finally saw it as it is, held by love. Jesus lived in that vision constantly. He saw through pain into purpose, through endings into resurrection. That is the invitation of the divine mind, to see life through eternal eyes. When you learn to think that way, every breath becomes prayer, every act becomes worship, every thought becomes creation, and slowly, the mind that once feared everything learns to rest. It rests not because the world became perfect, but because it finally trusts that perfection is already present beneath every appearance. The mind that remembers truth becomes a vessel of peace, and when peace settles into thought, creation begins to heal itself. You don't have to fix every part of your life at once. You only need to bring awareness to one thought at a time. Awareness is light, and light does not fight darkness, it simply replaces it. Every time you remember who you are, one shadow disappears. Every time you choose calm instead of panic, a doorway opens. Every time you forgive, you return to the frequency of heaven. This is how the world is transformed, not through force but through consciousness. The old mind tries to solve fear by control. The renewed mind dissolves fear by recognition. Jesus never tried to control people, circumstances, or outcomes. He moved through life like a river, flexible, silent, certain. He spoke only what was aligned with love, and in that alignment, everything obeyed him. That same power of alignment still lives within you. It has never left. It waits behind every breath, behind every thought. When you stop fighting with your own mind, peace rushes in like water returning to the ocean. That is why he said, "Come to me, all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." The rest he promised was not sleep. It was surrender. It was the rest that comes when you stop pretending to be separate from God. You were never meant to carry every burden yourself. You were meant to remember that you walk with infinite intelligence, that your thoughts can harmonize with divine will. When your thoughts become simple, life becomes miraculous. When the noise quiets, love takes form. Notice how many of your struggles begin as thoughts. The fear of lack, the memory of failure, the habit of expecting disappointment. They are not reality, they are programs. They run because they have never been questioned. To question a fearful thought is to expose its emptiness. To ask, is this God's voice or my fear's echo, is to reclaim your authority. Jesus lived from that authority. He didn't allow doubt to dictate his vision. When he looked at a storm, he saw stillness. When he looked at sickness, he saw wholeness. When he looked at death, he saw resurrection. And every time his vision overrode the illusion, reality responded. You hold that same creative vision. Your thoughts are prayers in motion. Your beliefs are magnets shaping experience. If you fill your mind with gratitude, it will multiply what you bless. If you fill your heart with peace, it will transform what you touch. You don't need to fight to attract blessings. You only need to think like the one who created them. Thinking like Christ means allowing divine logic to replace human panic. It means trusting unseen timing, forgiving the unchangeable, and loving without measure. It means understanding that everything you fear is simply something you've misinterpreted. When the mind sees with love, fear becomes irrelevant. The more you practice awareness, the more life rearranges itself around your peace. People who once triggered you become teachers. Situations that once frightened you become opportunities to stay still. This is not detachment, it is transformation. You no longer avoid the world, you redeem it with perception. Each morning you can begin again. You can choose the thoughts you want to live from. You can say quietly, "Today, I will see through heaven's eyes, and throughout the day, you will notice how reality answers. Moments that once felt random begin to feel guided. The timing of things begins to make sense. This is how the mind and spirit walk together, not through effort, but through awareness. Even in your most human moments, when doubt returns, remember that Jesus never demanded perfection. He simply invited presence. He said, "Follow me," not "understand me." Following means returning again and again, step by step, thought by thought. When you fall into fear, follow him back into stillness. When you fall into judgment, follow him back into love. That rhythm becomes your real prayer. The peace of Christ is not delicate. It is the strongest force in the universe. It can coexist with pain and transform it. It can sit inside sorrow and still whisper hope. It can walk through loss and still call it love. Because peace is not the absence of emotion. It is the mastery of awareness. You are not asked to suppress what you feel. You are asked to remember that what you feel is temporary, but what you are is eternal. The world needs minds that remember this truth. A quiet mind is not weak. It is revolutionary. It creates space where chaos once ruled. It radiates calm that changes rooms without words. When you walk into a space with peace, people feel it before you speak. That is your real ministry. You don't have to preach peace, you become it. This is how the kingdom spreads, not through conquest but through consciousness. One awakened mind at a time. One heart that chooses stillness over struggle. One soul that decides to see light where others see only shadows. The world will not teach you this, it profits from your confusion. But Jesus already gave you the key. He said, "The kingdom of heaven is within you, not within the powerful, not within the perfect, within you." The gate to heaven opens not in death, but in awareness. When you realize that, you stop chasing salvation and start expressing it. You stop waiting for miracles and start thinking from them. And as you think from peace, peace expands. You begin to feel that every breath is sacred, that every heartbeat is prayer. You begin to live in constant communication with the divine. The mind that once felt divided becomes whole. It becomes an instrument through which God's love can act freely. And from that mind, new creations flow naturally. Kindness, forgiveness, beauty, clarity. This is not fantasy. It is the natural evolution of human consciousness when it remembers its source. Maybe as you listen, a quiet understanding is rising in you. Maybe you can feel the truth of these words in your body, the warmth in your chest, the slowing of your breath. That is the evidence of presence. That is your mind aligning with the Christ within. Don't rush away from this feeling. Stay here for a moment longer. Let this awareness soak into you. The more you dwell in it, the more it becomes your default state. Peace is learned through repetition, just like fear once was. Every time you choose calm, you teach your nervous system that it is safe to rest. Every time you choose gratitude, you remind your mind that life is generous. And soon, faith becomes as natural as breathing. The practice never ends, but neither does grace. Each day is another chance to start again, to think again, to love again. This is what Jesus meant by being born again, not the rebirth of flesh, but the rebirth of thought. To think anew is to live anew. So now, as this message comes to a close, take one deep breath. Feel it enter your body, rise to your mind, and settle in your heart. Let it remind you that you are not separate from the divine. You are the expression of divine thought made visible. And when you think from that truth, you live from it. The kingdom is not out there. It is within you, always has been, always will be. And whoever governs the mind, governs reality. Before you go, if this message spoke to your heart, let it echo a little further. Leave a comment below. Tell us where you're watching from and how this truth is unfolding in your life. If these words brought you peace, give this video a like. It helps the message reach more souls who are searching for calm. And if you want to keep awakening with us, subscribe to this channel and stay close to the light we share here each week. Most of all, don't stop here. Stay with this frequency of peace. Choose one of the 2 videos appearing on your screen right now and continue this journey deeper. Because every time you return, every time you listen, every time you remember, your mind becomes more like his. And when you think like Christ, you live as peace itself.